So we should, I guess we'll just go ahead and jump into it. So first of all, the genre of this movie, I think, is probably one of the easier ones to do. It's just more of like a drama, a straightforward kind of drama. I like that it takes place over the course of a seemingly, like very short period of time, as well as it takes place all in this one neighborhood, and it has this kind of cross-sectional analysis of how races in America kind of intermingle and how tensions start to rise. And I think it does a good service to itself by placing itself in New York as well, because New York is known for being a really heavily mixed, while also it's always had a lot of racism deeply seated within it, like anti-Irish back in the day, anti-Italian, anti-black sentiment, etc. And so the main two scenes in here that are like far up for analysis is the love and hate scene, which you had gotten up for a moment, but basically it was just Radio Raheem going through, and he gives this kind of monologue about love and hate and how they're constantly fighting out for each other, but he believes at the end of the day that love will still win. One of the things that I find interesting is he talks about how one hand destroys and how the other hand kind of builds. However, when he shows both hands, he still shows them as fists. It's not like one is an open hand and the other one is closed, kind of signifying that one is more dangerous than the other. He puts them both, love and hate, as being kind of the same thing, just two opposite sides of that same thing, which I found that to be interesting. And I kind of think that the way that it plays into the ending is that it is hard when there is especially love between people or a community, and then some immense thing that happens that breaks the camel's back, so to speak. So like, for example, Mookie, he is basically a son to Sal. Sal like treats him really well. He like even says like, oh, you and your sister, like I treat you like my kids. And so like having him be close to them, but in that moment when Radio Raheem is killed, Mookie is the one who goes over and takes that bin and throws it and starts the riot at the end of the day. And it's weird how the one that was closest to Sal, or received the most love from Sal, so to speak, had the most outrage in a way to be the one to start the riot. And I think it also makes a lot of sense because it really reveals somebody to be something that you might not have thought they were. Like in that moment, had Sal said, yo, that was fucked up, like those cops didn't need to do that, instead he says, oh, they did what they needed to do. And obviously that reveals something about Sal's character and how he feels about the situation. And I can totally understand like the anger that would build up, because at the end of the day, yeah, Sal's pizzeria is burned down and he spent his whole life working on that, and that does mean something. But Radio Raheem is forever gone. That is a life that would never be brought back. And so it also does this really interesting juxtaposition between the traditional idea of riots, of what we talk about in America, is like, yeah, stuff gets burned down, but at the end of the day, what is it that's causing the riots in the first place? And is there some injustice or inaction or potential action that caused that riot to begin with? Because riots, as you know, the old saying is, are the voice of the unheard. So it does a really good job, I think, of exploring those racial tensions and also showing how people that, so to speak, hate each other so much can come together and even like live peacefully for even a period of time. Because I mean, I think of Sal's kid, played, I think his name is, I know it's Totoro. Is it John Totoro or Totoro? Yeah, is it John Totoro or Jim Totoro? But basically he obviously throws a lot of racial epithets around, and he's extremely fucking racist. And obviously, I mean, I doubt this is something that just came out of the blue. He was probably racist for a long time, but he got more and more comfortable with his racism as time went on. And so like, but it did an interesting thing of showing how Mookie like tried to sit down with him and have this conversation about like, hey, how do you see these people? You like them even though they're black. Why do you separate them? And I think that the way that we see people and how we look at people and whatnot is a main thing here too, because we can also see that with Sal and Mookie's sister, where Mookie takes it as oh, you want to fuck my sister, but for Sal it's clearly like a father-daughter type relationship. He's seen this girl grow up for so long, and so like even that, a lot of this is all about optics and how things look as well. At the end of the day, does it look at like extremely terrible that Sal's Pizzeria got burned down? Yeah, but again, like we have to look at what started that. And the last piece that I'll say is I read I hadn't read any analysis on this before, but I was reading a little bit of an analysis on the love and hate scene where Raheem gives his monologue, because I hadn't fully got an idea of what I thought it meant either. I think it is just supposed to be kind of like a metaphor for what comes up and the tensions that can rise between the two, like I mentioned earlier. But one thing that I didn't realize is we kind of talked about during the film, the angles get more and more interesting and jarred and kind of like tilted or sideways as things go on. And apparently, as the film goes on, and I can see this now that I read it, basically that becomes more and more common, where the shots will get more tilted or more kind of slightly out of frame or out of focus or whatever it is, in order to kind of show that agitation and get that agitation through, and to build that up so slowly, and to do it through everything from the from the dialogue to the monologue to like the framing of everything. It's so well made that it says so much while also being a fairly simple and straightforward story. I find it interesting that one thing is, the title is Do the Right Thing. And so one of the questions that Spike Lee got a lot was, well, did Mookie do the right thing, or what is the title supposed to mean? And one thing that Spike Lee said was that it's typically white people apparently that ask like, oh, did Mookie do the right thing or not? And usually he was coming across lines of, because a lot of people, especially in America, look at it from that private property analysis and place private property above people's lives in a lot of circumstances. And I think that there's actually some validity to that. Obviously, like if you spent your entire life working for something, that does mean something at the end of the day. But in America, to place private property so highly above life that people are like, well, the fucking Wendy's, that's what we should be talking about burning down, not the life that was lost, etc. Yeah, it's definitely a pretty crazy topic, and it's still extremely current in America. Like, this is not seemingly going to be a problem that's going to end anytime soon either. So anyway, that's my general thoughts on what it was trying to get across, is just how those tensions can rise amongst those communities and whatnot. So what did you guys think of it? If you didn't have any further analysis than that, like, what is your guys reviews of it? Did you like the movie? Did you not? What did you guys think about it?
Personally, the ending is the most controversial because obviously Mookie worked with Sal, and Sal even gives him the money at the end. Yeah, and it's more almost money like he realizes the business doesn't matter because he get the insurance or whatever, which Mookie tells him that. Yeah, and yeah, sure, but from Sal's point of view is, yeah, like you were saying, like he built this business and he's invested so much time and energy, and now it's just gone. Whereas, Radio Raheem is dead, but the symbol that you're attacking is not the right symbol. It should be the police, because they're the ones who took his life.
Why do you think that that Sal did go in the direction of like, oh, they were just doing what they need to? I think probably it was just that, like, if I'm thinking of from the writer's perspective, they were probably thinking like, oh, well, in this moment, Sal is probably going to have just an instinctive reaction to side with like the people that were supposedly protecting him. Well, yeah. And so like, because obviously I think that's the biggest point of contention. If he didn't say that, then I would say Mookie is totally in the wrong.
Well, the other thing too that I feel like is missed a lot is Radio Raheem would have killed Sal. He was choking him out. He was, and he was ready, ready to kill Sal. Sure, yeah. Because nobody was getting him off, and so the cops basically, they took it way overboard and killed a dude that didn't need to die. But to sit there and act like Radio Raheem did absolutely nothing wrong at all, would also be completely wrong, because he absolutely did something wrong. He was choking a dude almost unconscious at the point where he would have died.
I do think that's the interesting thing too, is that everybody has certain culpability here. Is that like at the end of the day, Sal didn't need to raise tensions by breaking Radio Raheem's thing. Like, that's arguably when it became like a physical thing, is when he pulled out the bat and did that.
Yeah.
So like, there's that. There's the whole thing that Buggy or Bugsy or whatever they call them, bugging out. Like, he didn't need to go out and like make this big stink about the guy on the wall. Mookie, if he didn't throw the thing, it wouldn't have caused there to be the riot to begin with. So I do also like the fact that he does add culpability to pretty much every character here, to show that like, no, everybody added up to what this final ride ended up being. And yes, you are right that Raheem definitely was going, like, he was choking Sal out completely. The only issue is that obviously once the cops got him off of Sal, they didn't need to continue choking him.
No, that's what I said.
And that's the big thing.
It too far, but that's not Sal.
Well, but again, I think the issue for me is if Sal never said like, oh yeah, the cops were doing what they need to do, then I'd say Mookie's totally in the wrong. But I think that obviously Mookie's still somewhat in the wrong. He shouldn't have gone and done that. However, I think Sal shouldn't have said, oh, they were doing what they needed to do.
No,
because obviously, like, they didn't need to. And they make it so clear, because even the other cop is telling the guy, like, yo, dude, chill, like, get off.
But that also seems weird to hear. Like, I feel like that's just forced dialogue in a script that didn't, like, writing that to have Sal say that is completely out of the character that you've built up in the entire movie so far. Where this dude basically, you've seen he even talks about in the window with his son, and he's like, the reason why he doesn't leave is because he's seen everyone grow up. All of them, he feels like all of everyone there is like his family. And so him saying like the cops, like that, I to think me
that
feels
actually
like
is actually very real. I think that most of the time what happens is people have a inclination to side. I mean, even one of the cops was black, right? One of the guys says that. Yeah. So it's not necessarily that, oh, he sided with the cops because they're white. You could say that, but really what you can say is that it's kind of in people's nature to jump to side with whomever was like protecting them, so to speak. And so in that moment, what I think it was is it's a really hectic situation that's super fucking chaotic. People are looking for somebody to take things out on. And then on top of that, Sal clearly was like, when he gave that answer, probably wasn't thinking clearly. And really, if you gave him time,
I think it's a natural, like, kind of like you were saying, like, to kind of side with your protector, but also to come up with a reasoning behind something that's
that's so bad, because you don't want it to have just happened. And but then when you look at that, that's why I love this film, because it's all about optics. Because when you look at it from Sal's optics, it's like, okay, I can understand why Sal might say that. But when you look at it from everybody else's optics, he's justifying the death of a guy that was killed in a brutal and horrifying way. Yeah. And so I think that it is really all up in the air. That's one of the interesting parts.
I don't understand why, to me, like, if this is a real life scenario, like, sound not putting up at least one person, whether it's Michael Jordan or Michael Jackson or whatever it is, just having that one person. And if bugging out still bitched and complained, that's the enemy. Yeah, he can that's the himself, fucking problem. Yeah, and then he can get the fuck out. And then you can't fucking create this narrative of Sal potentially, siding with police and thinking that was justified in what happened to Radio Raheem. Also, he warned Radio Raheem about the fucking radio once before. So already Radio Raheem was a fucking annoyance, because it's like, he already told you not to fucking blast a goddamn boombox inside the fucking pizzeria once, and then you did it again.
And I think one of the interesting things too is that for bugging out, what he's really doing is false activism.
Yeah, he's doing of course.
Activism.
That's why
for
nobody sided with him.
Exactly, that doesn't really mean anything. And that's the thing too, is like creating those tensions out of nowhere is, well, like, yes, I agree, Sal should have just put somebody up there. It's like, at the end of the day, who gives a fuck?
Let somebody become the enemy themselves. If it's something that simple, I always believe, let somebody hang themselves. Don't fucking sit there and do it yourself.
Yeah, no, because then you can just tell people, like, and obviously once people like are like, no, I'm not siding with you, obviously bugging out was just like desperate to get anybody to agree with him because and again he
were
probably
closed.
was coming from.
And that was the other thing. They were closed, and he let the other kids in, Martin Lawrence's group, and he let them in. You have like one final slice, and then of course Radio Raheem and bugging out, and then the other dude, the not mentally challenged dude, Smiley. Basically sit there and come in there, and they sit there and say their protests like they're fucking closed.
Well, and also
it's like you want to do this in the fucking morning.
And also bugging out probably is coming from a place of like seeing real racial issues and whatnot, but then he doesn't have any way to like actually go and do something because a lot of people when they see these issues they don't know where to even begin with addressing them. But Mookie's sister
tells him that. There's a moment in the movie when Mookie's sister, Jade, basically tells Bugging Out, you're wasting your time. If you want to sit there and spend so much energy on protesting, you're protesting in the wrong place, and you need to. And then he's just like, oh, whatever. It's like because he's it's the fucking easiest thing is the fucking protesting your own fucking something that's not an issue in the first place.
Yeah, because it's okay to protest in your neighborhood, but it wasn't an issue to begin with for sure. I think that definitely, and the fact that that bit of activism that wasn't necessary to begin with leads to all that. Again, it's all of these tensions that didn't need to be there to begin with that all just have shit added on. And the thing too is it's all influenced from outside racial perspectives, right? Because there isn't even that much beef between the direct black and white folks living in this neighborhood. There's more beef between the Koreans and the black people than anything. And so overall the tension really is from the racial tensions within America that are then plastered over the viewpoint of this neighborhood.
And then there's the scene where the police basically Martin Lawrence and his group are kind of using the fire hydrant to spray water on the car. They're just like, whatever. We don't care. It's kind of like this moment where the police are like showing
that they can be good in a way.
And I really like that.
That it shows that they're not just evil.
And then even one of the cops is like, hey, that's enough. And then it's the white dude that's choking him out and killing him. Yeah, the big white dude. So it's a movie that kind of just places various scenes that may not mean something right away, but they
all add together. It's a domino effect. It all just slowly falls down. And I love it. I think so. We haven't watched like a ton of Spike Lee movies, but this is definitely my favorite of the Spike Lee films that we've watched so far. What did you think, Peter?
I mean, it's interesting watching a film that's so different in its political views and ties and stuff. Like a lot of the issues and themes of the film are not like, I wouldn't say necessarily American, but not Australian, luckily. Although like it is interesting watching now. I mean, we don't have like race rights and shit, but there is a lot of discussion to date the podcast, to date the analysis of it right now. This month we're having a referendum to change the constitution to give the native Australians more power in the constitution. And there's a lot of discussion on that, so it's interesting seeing that perspective. It's not as relevant obviously to how I've grown up, but it's still relevant to there's like race issues everywhere. I mean, everyone's just chatting so much shit on like, oh, it's not fair to give them a voice, and it's like very interesting. Across all nations, there's always some people that are doing the wrong thing and stuff. But the film, I thought it was a good film. Was it 80s or even older than that?
88. Yeah, it was like late 80s. It was either I think 89 is right, or 88.
Yeah, 89.
Okay. Yeah, for sure.
I like the vibe of it for sure. I think on the conversation you guys were just having as well, I don't necessarily think that Sal's perspective was right, but I do understand where he's coming from. If he's like an Italian immigrant who's come here and built up this shop and stuff, and he's not like, fuck off when I'm not putting some, N-word on the wall, but he's like, it's my shop, I only want like Italian Americans on the wall. I can see where he's coming from, though he's not necessarily, in the riots. Like I get his
Yeah, like if you were
perspective.
to do the traditional thing but if like let's say that was a black man and you were like put a white man up there, it's like no, I mean he should have the right to put whoever the fuck he wants on that wall.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then like it's weird that Sal's son Pino has a completely different perspective than Sal when it comes to living in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
The people that are in it. Even his own brother is against him. Like his own brother is like friends with Mookie. Mookie listens to him.
Yeah.
He even talks to Pino about that. The fact that no, Mookie listens to me, he actually understands me, and you're my own brother, and you don't give a shit.
Yeah.
It's such a like the times and the people that you grow up with. I mean, now it's not as big of an issue because you have like the internet and stuff.
Yeah.
But if he just grows up in this neighborhood and he sees all of his issues while there's like race tensions in America, I assume he's seeing all these issues like, you know, the people spraying him with a fire hydrant or whatever happened during his childhood. He sees them as the issue, and he hears people talking about, oh, we have to deal with these African Americans and blah blah blah. So he probably
And he
connects
sees
these dots.
Mookie as lazy, and he thinks he's putting in so much more work. And he also sees his own father looking at Mookie as a son in his own words. And obviously, I'm sure that probably makes his son feel some type of way. And also, it's funnily enough because you mentioned it's like relevant to every country. Funnily enough, I hear that most about Sweden. Is that in Sweden and in Germany, I guess, like there was a lot of movement against racism because of like the Nazi shit, obviously. And then like PewDiePie, I remember was talking a while ago about how like people of his age and even younger were becoming more anti-Semitic and more racist because like they were seeing just kind of it's almost like there's a pendulum that goes from generation to generation, and people like to do the opposite of whatever their parents do. And so like
no matter how extreme it might be.
Exactly. So then there's this pendulum swing, and there's even like a political ideologies around this whole thing that like it just will constantly go back and forth. And that seems to be the case here, is that obviously Sal has some racial like background, like you mentioned. He like wants to like identify with Italians, so he puts up Italians on the fucking wall, which it's like obviously that's where you come from. That's because
cool. We don't really see in the movie like somebody who is not like a part of the neighborhood who's black and then all of a sudden visits Sal's. We don't know how he would interact with that person. This entire neighborhood he knows, and he's growing up with it, like, and kind of seen from a kid to an adult, or adults become older, as he said, and then but we don't know how he would interact with somebody who might be black and has no affiliation with this neighborhood.
Because
it's a lot easier to like people all of a sudden you don't see race, you don't care about religion,
100%.
But somebody you don't know, all of a sudden those concepts become very important.
I even see that with between different sects of black people from like different states. So like people from
the
fucking
whole
West
New
Coast,
York,
East Coast,
West Coast
fucking
and
hatred, 100%. If like people definitely respond differently, right, to people outside of their own view. And also though, the whole thing is about how each person's own like self-affliction through their lens is what plays out into this neighborhood. And like you see that even with something as slight as the mayor and whatnot, where the mayor is like kind of this force for good, even though he's a bum and all this other shit, where like you traditionally see him as like, oh, he's like, a waste on the neighborhood, or even a drain on the neighborhood, is how a lot of people look at homeless people. Like he was actually providing people with, well, 1, companionship, and 2, he saved that kid's life. 3, he was able to kind of negate the riot from going over to the Koreans and whatnot. He gave the Koreans the pass, which I
They're black.
They're black, exactly. I respect that. And so like I love how they do put like he has, and obviously he had his own trauma, which he even goes over. And earlier on in the film they have the guy sit there and berate him for being a bum, when it's true he doesn't know where this guy came from, and etc. And also there is some truth to the younger black person being like, well, hey, why don't you get a job? Why didn't you go and try to feed your family rather than listening to them cry, etc. It's like, again, all of these perspectives are justified to a certain certain degree, and the problem is people don't look at it from that third person perspective. But that's why this movie is so cool, is because it begs the audience and forces the audience to be put in a third person perspective to all of their lenses.
Even like the discipline, when it came to the kid that the mayor saved, like he tells the mother, "Hey, you don't gotta, beat him.
Yeah,
like, hey, he's already traumatized enough from this." Yeah. Like but she's just like, "Hey, don't tell me how to raise my kid." Basically.
Yeah, and it's like both sides of that is valid. It's like, you don't want to like be overhanded,
because
obviously.
He probably most people don't get this, but yeah, if you sit there and you beat your kid constantly, it just makes them more angry and aggressive as they get older and older, and that's why if you have to beat your child to discipline them, you're a bad parent.
Yeah, 100%. But like her perspective obviously was back then they didn't have a lot of these ideas of how to properly raise children and all this other shit. So they were raised in a way that it's like, hey, I'm gonna go and you get beat, etc. And so obviously that's not the right way. But the mom was doing it from what she knew how to parent. Obviously, it would be better to be like, oh, you're grounded, or whatever the fuck it is. But, in that situation, I can understand where she's coming from. Like, hey, I have to parent my kid. He almost died. If you weren't there, he would have been in a fucking hospital that I couldn't afford.
Because you see him maybe what I call a white people film. Like if you see something like that where a kid is saved, you see the mom like, oh my god, are you okay? Thank you so much. She's comforting the kid. Yeah. And then this is the complete opposite. Yeah. Like this mom is beating her kid on the way to the
I've never seen if I did some stupid shit, then my mom would just be the same. She'd be like, "The fuck are you doing, you fucking idiot?" It's not gonna be some easy shit. Like, oh my god, my son. So. But yeah, I definitely, and I find it interesting because I think the mayor and the lady on the stoop, I forget her name, but mother sister, mother sister, them two are like the only two that really don't really play into the riot whatsoever, other than the mayor kind of redirecting. But otherwise,
Sam Jackson, Mr. Senor Love Doctor, I think.
Oh yeah, that's true. I guess Sam Jack didn't really. He's
the narrator.
Yeah, you're right. That is his purpose. He's the narrator for sure. So but I like that they allowed there to be room for people within the story that didn't really add fully to the riot or anything, because it gave you a full picture of a traditional American neighborhood, and that is definitely what I felt from this. It's like, even though I never lived in New York, etc., I can understand the dynamics of some of these relationships just based off of my own growing up, etc. And again, it puts people in a third person perspective, where the only issue that I think that I can say about it is, if you're gonna look at it, most people will look at it from whatever their lens is, and they'll see that as the way to interpret the film, and they'll think that there's no other way to look at it. And I think that probably was a bigger issue than anything, because for the most part, it is hard for people to kind of conceptualize oh yeah, I can see where this person was coming from, etc. Most people just look at it through what they would have done or what they see as moral, and then they kind of call it there. But I think that's why he does a good thing at the end by including both a Martin Luther King and a Malcolm X quote, by then basically telling the audience no, I'm not telling you to interpret his actions as good or bad, and so it's up to you to kind of think about that further. So but I think obviously that's more of a subtle way to beg the audience to do that, by putting those quotes at the end, where for the most part, I don't know, I mean, obviously I would have been curious to see what the response was back in the 80s to this film. I'll have to go and I'll have to read some reviews from back in the day and stuff and see how the white people responded, because I'm very curious. But yeah, okay.
One of the interesting things I find with this sort of discussion is people really seem to, and it's very bad nowadays with the internet, you really seem to get out of situations a lot of the time what you're looking for. If you take the mayor and Sal's son, Pino. Pino could have lived his life with a positive outlook on this whole thing and come to a completely different perspective. But when he's looking at everything negatively, he can see things like the mayor and be like, oh, this lazy bum. And he can see the kids fucking with cars and be like, oh, they're such troublemakers.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's always, in every situation, every community, there's good and there's bad. And a lot of people, a lot of like not hardline people, I find tend to just expect something,
Mhm.
and then they get out what they're expecting, whether that's some racist perspective or even just like, people that go online looking up left and right wing stuff. You end up getting that
Yeah.
sort of stuff tailored to you. Especially now, you can just go look up like, you know, X race doing bad thing, and you'll get
Yeah,
tons of
a
results, I'm
million
sure.
results. Yep.
Yeah.
But you're not looking at both perspectives. You just get super focused in.
Yeah, and that's how the
Yeah.
radicalization I feel that has taken place a lot on both sides of this political spectrum
Hmm.
within America is especially on YouTube and all these other places is like people would like to joke about the like pipeline to whatever isn't real, but the radicalization pipeline on YouTube is 100% real because you'll watch a certain type of content and you're going to get recommended more of that content, and that's just how the algorithm works. And that's not saying that like it's intentionally radicalizing people, but a byproduct of that is that you might go from watching like a Jordan Peterson or a Ben Shapiro and then end up at a Nick Fuentes. And when you have all of the, or you might from the opposite end, you'll end up going from like a AOC to like a fucking Louis Farrakhan. So like at the end of the
Well, yeah,
day, yeah,
we've created our own fucking monster here. Like
mm-hmm.
the origination of an algorithm is like you watch a funny video, you get another funny video. But if you watch something racist and you keep getting more racist things, or you watch
Yeah.
something left leaning and keep getting more left things,
Yeah.
you just end up getting a super skewed view on everything.
Absolutely, and you have to actively seek out the opposite side, and that's what I've found that I have to do is go like follow A, B, and C, and then go to the subscription box because the recommended page is just going to give me the shit that I want to see. And now I think that Twitter, that was what I used to use Twitter for too, is I'd be like, okay, I'll follow like the right wing people, I'll follow Trump, I'll follow all these motherfuckers, and then I'll follow people on the left like Hassan and Vosh and all these motherfuckers and AOC. And then I can just scroll through and I get a mixture of like, okay, this is what the right-wing conspiracy theorists are thinking. This is what the left-wing Democratic Party is thinking. This is what the extreme right-wing is thinking, etc. But now it's like all just either the most right-wing shit or the most edgy shit possible. And so
X is horrible.
yeah, fucking I will refuse to call it that. Twitter.
Favorite.
Yeah.
But,
Fucking,
like, to me, like Twitter was good, and
Yeah.
now X is just unusable. Like
It is. It's
I don't
horrible.
even get like it. Like I used to sit there in the trending tab and that I used to get things that I cared about.
Yeah.
Now it's just nonsense in the
Now it's
trending tab.
sneako.
Stuff
It's
that
only-
I don't care about
Yeah.
at all.
It's only like
Andrew Tate.
controversial stuff because
Yeah.
like I have an account that I've like rarely used that I made to promote gaming videos
Yeah.
that I haven't really done anything with. So I don't really follow anything. I've like liked a few posts related and followed a few accounts. And all that I get on there is like fucking like Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, like different people arguing on the feed. And it's like I don't follow these accounts. It's just tweets, inflammatory tweets that are like people arguing.
Yeah, 100%.
The one thing I was gonna say about the movie, there's something I just thought of, but in the movie, Pino feels almost like his life is chosen for him, and like even
lot
when
of
his
immigrants feel
Sal
that.
is telling him, hey, I'm gonna name it Sal and Sons Pizzeria, and basically Pino wants to sit there and move the pizzeria to somewhere where he feels like more comfortable near like Italian people, and basically Sal tells him, hey, that's a stupid idea because there's already too many pizza
And it is a
restaurants.
stupid idea.
The
to
one
be
thing
fair.
you can kind of conflate that to is when you grow up in the hood, it's hard to escape it. And if you're lucky enough to get the fuck out, you count your blessings basically. But there's a lot of people who are born in that circumstance that feel like they're stuck. And I almost feel in a way like Spike Lee was trying to show like Pino, who isn't black, is Italian and doesn't fit. Like it's almost like a black kid who grows up in the suburbs and has it's all white people, and it's hard to fit in because he can't really relate to because of maybe his ethnic background or colors, whatever it might be. But I feel like that's something that I just thought of that I thought it is interesting in the film because I feel like, let Pino kind of make his own pizza restaurant. Then if it fails, it fails.
Yeah.
But at least he got to
I
choose
think the
his
main
own
thing
life
is that
at that point.
I think the main thing is not necessarily even that, because at the end of the day, that's how all immigrants usually feel, is that their life's chosen for them. But Pino clearly wants Sal's Pizzeria. He just doesn't want it there.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. He doesn't care that his life is chosen for him. He just sees these people as a drain on him for some reason. And at the end of the day, I think that's why Spike Lee does a really good job of like showing
He's
that,
forcing himself to
like,
refuse to sit there and feel like he can ever relate to anybody there.
well, and also
And that's
all his
what I
favorite
think his
people
brother
are
get-
black.
Vito gets
as he
more
mentions.
than Pino is that. No, it doesn't matter what the
What their
color of the
skin
skin
color
is.
is, yeah.
Like, we go through the same struggles. We feel the
And that's what
same
Mookie tried to
things.
explain when he's like, "Oh, your favorite people are black. Your favorite
Yeah, and
basketballer
then
is
it's
black.
just like,
your
well,
pop
they're
star."
not black.
Yeah, they're not black.
Yeah,
they're
they're not
different.
black.
yeah. It's like when I say that Cronenberg
It's
is
like,
ethereal.
how
he's not
hard do you
Canadian.
have to work to make yourself feel like an outcast when you're not an outcast?
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing too. Is like it is a stupid fucking idea to take it. Like, you're an Italian person, fine. You got to go outside of an Italian fucking neighborhood to do a pizza restaurant, because there's gonna be people that make way better pizzas than you. It is what it is, and they're gonna be like way too many of them. And at the end of the day, like, if he wanted to move out of New York, I could understand. But that was the thing that I didn't get. It felt like he didn't even really know what he wanted more than anything.
Yeah.
Like, it seemed like he
just
wanted to fill his
be
father's
away from
shoes.
the people
Yeah, he
and the
just hated
environment.
these people for some reason, which I think that they didn't do a good enough job. The only thing that I saw was that he was jealous over his father's relationship with Mookie. And
But
he
even
again
that
felt
doesn't feel
Mookie-
like that big of a deal.
Yeah, well, he just calls Mookie lazy, but like even then, like, he sits down and he talks to Mookie. He doesn't really like go hard on him at
Yeah.
any point. So yeah, that was the
It's not
one
like
character
he
that I
threatens
felt.
and berates him constantly. It's like,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
he
exactly.
must be chill with them
To a degree,
Like,
for sure. So that's the one
so
character I
something
felt
else
was
is going on.
underbaked.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
because I
wasn't
was like, there
explored.
must be something here that bothered. Maybe he was jumped or mugged or whatever the fuck. Maybe there was a robbery at the pizza. Who knows? Like, there could be a million things that would do that. But yeah, I felt like they never really gave us a good reason, even though there isn't a good reason to be that racist, obviously. But like, they
Yeah.
never gave us something to show, like, oh yeah, this is why he is this way.
And he says, like, he tells his dad, like, oh, we don't belong here.
Yeah, and even though like Sal feels like he belongs there, the other people up until the point.
I mean,
where
the
he
Korean
happens
people,
feel
yeah,
like
you
belong there.
felt like, no, we're like you.
Yeah, like, yeah,
And that was,
obviously they're
again-
like it's the meme that they like, yeah, hurry up and buy, like that's like a common running meme. So like,
Yeah, even like the
Boy.
Radio Raheem and the batteries. Check the expiration
yeah,
date.
yeah. He's like, what?
It's
I
March.
like
Yeah.
Pino's character is he's just like angry. So the neighborhood that he's grown up in, he's just grown up
Okay.
with that hate, and he's just channeled it towards those people.
Just
'Cause in all of
overlaid
the
it on 'em.
scenes where there's like,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of scenes where he's just like going to front on people and like
Yeah.
just getting in their face, just for no real reason. And
Yeah.
if you have that much anger, I feel like if you need an outlet when the media at the time's probably talking about all these race relations and stuff, it's
Huge.
yeah, I guess he just
Well, even like
Besides, that's his-
when Sal gives a free piece of pizza to Demare, and then Pino's got an issue with that. He immediately, why you always give him a piece of pizza? Why you give him free stuff? Like, he's just gonna keep coming back.
Yeah, and it's like
just
at the end of
it's
the
a
day,
piece
who
of pizza,
cares?
the
It's one
fuck
piece of
cares? It's
pizza.
one piece of
Yeah.
pizza.
Well, and also like there's like in plenty of other countries, it's common for people to like pay for other like homeless people to get food, or for homeless people to come in and maybe finish leftovers of
Yeah.
meals for them.
Well, and
It's
the
just
mayor
this
buys
really-
the flowers, and even sister and tells the Korean shop owners, like, I'll pay.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
because they think he might. Yeah, he's just like, no, I'm gonna pay for these flowers.
yeah.
Right, like so he sits there and he's saying, like, there's certain things like that he might get for free,
Yeah, for
but
sure.
he does pay for things, and they act like he
Or the
just
beer that
is
he
a
drinks, he
freeloader
does
off
pay.
of its entire environment.
Yeah.
It's that's completely.
And again, yeah, he
kinda
shows that he's
brushed
like he
away.
goes, he talks to people, and he provides companionship as well as he like again saves that kid's life, etc. And that yeah, it gives him he had some purpose at the end of the day, which I do like that they didn't just toss him aside, because a lot of films would just toss that character aside and be like, oh fuck it.
Yeah, no, I feel like Spike Lee did a really great job, especially in this movie,
Yeah.
by making the neighborhood feel a lot fuller than
Yeah.
it was actually. in the movie.
Yeah, it felt like a full bustling neighborhood that you like really knew these people for a long time.
Yeah,
but like
and
they set it up so quickly.
With that.
Yeah, they set it up very quickly, and they make it feel like you were a piece of this neighborhood. Yeah, for sure. And that's why it hits so hard at the end when the full thing goes down, and you're like, oh shit, they really just fucking killed this guy.
Yeah, he plays the same fucking song on a boombox, but why would you fucking kill him? That's just insane.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that again, there's movies that try to tackle race relations,
and they toss him in the back of the fucking car, knowing he's dead.
Oh yeah, and then they say, "Stop faking it, motherfucker." And
yeah,
like all
that's
other
fucking. That was insane.
And no, and like I said, I've seen
what?
Yeah,
Frankie Gray or what?
There's been a few that
situations.
The dude was there was also there was that one guy that they beat for 11 minutes straight a year ago, and he was like screaming and writhing in pain, and they told him to stop faking it. They burst his eye socket.
Yeah.
And they told them to stop faking it. So like, there's like clearly like even
or George
to this day,
Floyd alone. I mean,
yeah.
like, look at that.
100%.
The same thing.
Yeah, that's
it's
the thing.
Like
it's
Rodney
King
going. Beaten down in the 90s and
for nothing.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the dude, the white dude recorded the entire thing.
Just happened to have a camera and got paid a load of money off of that.
Yeah, if like nobody would have known that actually happened.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, obviously, black people have been saying it's happening, but until you actually have video,
it doesn't
evidence,
hit as hard.
Exactly.
It doesn't hit as hard. 100%. Yeah, and I just haven't seen a lot of films try to tackle these topics and try to tackle how these things come about. But this film, it does it so elegantly and in such a concise and easy way that's really digestible, and does it like it again. Yeah, makes you feel like you can really identify with the people in the neighborhood and get a feel of who they are in their background for sure.
Yeah, so, they did Do the Right Thing in the 80s, and then now they've done that like modern retelling Elemental.
yeah, absolutely. It's an equal 1-to-1.
Yeah, it's
the kids
do the
edition.
Right Thing for kids.
I think Spike Lee would approve. 100%.
Yeah, the kid he wants the fire shop, but doesn't really want it.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll have to definitely there are some other Spike Lee films.
The color grading in that. What do you think of Spike Lee's color grading? Like his coloring in the movie.
I like just the 80s look. I mean, I haven't seen his other films. Seen a lot of 80s films recently. I liked the look of it. I mean, I usually feel like films from the like 80s era just look really good, even if they're not like
there's a charm
well
to them.
done, just a vibe. Yeah, there's a charm. Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah, that's the thing is we watched Psycho Goreman, which is this terrible film, we keep
have you seen it?
Have you seen that film?
I've heard of it.
Okay. So the joke between me and Tim is that we'll watch a schlocky movie as long as the date starts with 1/9 because anytime that it's in the 2000s, it just doesn't have the charm.
Toxic
and it's just
Avenger
a bad
kind of
film.
might change that.
Totally Killer dropped. So Blumhouse happened to release Totally Killer and The Exorcist Believer. Exorcist Believer is tanking. It's got like 26% on Rotten Tomatoes.
I think people are just sick and tired of the whole demon bullshit.
Well, the Exorcist thing is already overdone. It didn't look like it was doing anything new or interesting. On top of it, it's the guy who did Halloween Ends, so I was already expecting it to be dog shit.
He went from Psycho Goreman to a movie called Monster in the Closet.
Oh yeah,
and we
haven't finished it yet.
We stop as a kid. There's a priest at the dinner table. And then the kid says,
"Hey, Mom, can I take him up to my room now?
And go play
to the priest. He's gonna take the priest adult upstairs."
And then we just stopped it right
there. And those films are just like so funny because they're so like they're not intentionally bad. They think that they're just being like normal comedies and horror comedies, but like they're so bad that they're funny. And that's the thing that doesn't
one that kind of does it with more. I'm not really serious tone, but I think the first one I kind of felt like I had that feel for me was always like Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, even though it has comedic. Like that. Yeah, it has that funny.
And that's like Freddy vs. Jason. I fucking love. It's one of my favorite horror films. But I love that about schlocky horror films is they're over the top, but it's hilarious.
Well, so Totally Killer is at 81% on Rotten Tomatoes apparently. Totally Killer is also Blumhouse, but It's basically about this girl who had some tragic event of her friends getting killed in the 80s, and she gets teleported back to the 80s somehow in time, and she has to try to stop the murder from happening. So it's like a slasher.
Did they change the color grade?
So I don't know. In the
I would've
trailer,
did
it didn't
that.
look like it, but
Maybe
that's
go
the thing
from,
is I
like
wish that they would.
Pleasantville.
The one trailer I was seeing
Well,
for that
even-
really turned me off.
It did it really? I watched. There was
They
one
just had some
trailer.
trailer that was like the new Blumhouse killer, and they showed like a bunch of their old films, like The Purge and stuff. And I was like,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's stupid. That's a dumb. Or yeah, but I think they might do some sort of thing. But it's not even the color grading that you would really need for the 80s. It's the grain,
The camera.
like
yeah.
or just the film grain. Like
Well, yeah,
you
they
lose
did,
that in these days.
Netflix did that fucking similar thing. They did that trilogy.
Yeah, I've been meaning to
Fear
watch
Street.
that. It was that. What's it called?
Fear Street.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
Street.
I
There's
didn't
like
think
Fear
it
Street
was
1984
that
or whatever
good.
people said. Oh, okay, people were saying it was good on Reddit and shit,
It
so I
was,
had it on my
um,
list.
Yeah, some of them are good. I mean, maybe I need to give it a second chance.
Okay.
But it was very Netflix horror
Okay.
schlocky, which is not
Not
great.
great. Usually,
But I mean, it's
yeah.
interesting that they had like 3 almost anthology films set in the like modern times, 80s, and then the 1600s, and like
Oh, that's pretty fun.
linked them all together. It's interesting.
Okay.
But,
Yeah, but so the Totally
have to
Killer
give it a
one,
check out.
I definitely, I think that's the main thing is you need the film grain, but because the score looks pretty good, and I already was like, oh, okay, I like the idea of it. Also, like it uses the Max Headroom mask meme from back in the day, which was this like
Oh, yeah.
meme of this guy that breaks in through the internet waves. It was like a TV show, I guess, in the 90s, and then it became a big meme in the 2000s. But so like they used that as the mask, and it just looked very like 80s schlocky. But I'm keeping my hopes still low because I am, for the most part, that I've not found a single schlocky movie from the 2000s onward that is good. So
Yeah,
we'll find out.
There's like
Yeah.
there's good like modern shitty horror films, but they're not the same at all.
Yeah.
They're like
Yeah.
a completely different vibe, I feel like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
for
still gonna
sure.
watch Saw 10 at some point. I
Yeah,
don't
we
think
do
it's
have to
gonna be
watch
good,
Saw.
but I mean,
No, I don't think it's gonna be good. either.
But yeah, I to me like the thing I hate the most is if you're going to do something that is in the 80s, film it like it's in the fucking 80s. Don't
Uh-huh.
make it look modernized. I think that's a terrible way to go about, especially with schlocky. Like
Uh-huh.
I hate that there's plenty of those movies and they usually are bad.
Yeah.
But like Psycho Goreman is one that I feel like if it was shot more in the because I
Like, if you add
honestly
the film grain to it.
yeah, like in the movie, I couldn't figure out what fucking year it was until I kind of saw the
Yeah, that's
N64
true.
controller.
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, oh, it must be in the 90s now. So, but if you can't tell what year it is and you're not telling the audience what year it is, then it's a problem. And it's not something that's like, oh, that's hand-holding. It's like, no. Inform us when we're supposed to place our mind in space.
I mean, I don't think
in
you
terms
have
of-
to do that. I mean, obviously you can do, but I mean, I think the main thing is that it's Psycho Goreman. If it was done with a film grain, it would have added to the charm of it, and I think it would have made it so that it would have been more palatable.
Well, you have this psycho child.
I hated that fucking.
Like,
yeah,
it's
that's
just-
the main thing. Is there's this like main character that's so fucking hateable that it like actually ruins the film.
Extremely hateable,
Like
yeah.
I literally said that if the kid doesn't die, it's a child. And I was like, if the kid doesn't die by the end of the film gets a -4. There was one funny joke where the monster guy, Psycho Goreman, is gay, and this villain like rips up his magazine.
Oh, so there, you must have missed it because it was an earlier joke in the film,
Uh-huh.
and basically there was a magazine, and then basically the girl was like, "Oh, those are hunky men," and then the Psycho Goreman was like, "I don't think I'm into hunky men." Am I?"
Oh, okay. Well, at
and
the
then
end,
it went back to it.
yeah, at
later
the
in
end when
movie.
he's fighting the villain, like rips the magazine or whatever, and he's like, "Not my hunky boys," and he
Yeah.
says it in the most anime way, and it's like it was so gay, it was hilarious. I fucking loved it. So that brought it up by 2 points in of itself. So it went from a -4 to a -2 out of 4. So
it was
that's
just
for Psycho
very,
Goreman.
very boring. And then because
Yeah.
the girl was so hateable,
hateable,
it's
yeah.
just
Yeah. Well, so we'll have to obviously. Yeah, go ahead.
Spike Lee films usually race relation style films?
A lot of them do have to do with at least the black experience. I wouldn't say that they're all about race relations, but like
Black Klansman is really good.
Oh my god, Black Klansman is fucking amazing.
He did Black Klansman.
Yeah, he did Black Klansman. Did you see that film?
No, I didn't. I thought he was like a 80s, 90s director. I didn't realize.
He's still around. No, he's still around. There's quite a few films.
Bamboozled is amazing.
Yeah, Bamboozled is from 2000s. It's about a minstrel show.
Michael Rappaport says the N-word like way too much.
Yeah, and he's way too comfortable with doing it. But they gave him the pass, literally, because it was Spike Lee, so I guess it's okay. But yeah, no, there is definitely, I think the main thing is that it just takes the black perspective and interweaves it into stories. So, like, there's one film I've been meaning to watch. It's called The Five Bloods. That's, like, some sort of black music fantasy or something. Yeah, it looked interesting, and it was, like, the category of it was really interesting.
Was it Chadwick Boseman?
I think so. Or someone. It was either that. I don't remember who's in it. But so yeah, well, there was quite a few. We've only watched like a few of the Spike Lee films. Of them, there's not a single one that I don't like so far. So.
Yeah, there's only a few things that catches like Spike Lee weirdly when he makes himself like one of the main characters. Always has to have like a sex scene.
Yeah, with the woman. That's always weird. It's very sexist in a way.
It's similar to like the scene with Tina and
you just didn't need to have him do that. But he wanted to put.
And then when you find out the story that
she was uncomfortable with it the whole time and all that.
Perez, she felt like, it's like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there's been multiple women that have come out and talked about how on Spike Lee sets that they don't feel comfortable, and I mean, hey, that's really fucked. So, but I mean, I think that's probably 90% of directors. So sadly, you just write off 90% of films, but yeah, definitely it does deserve to be called out. So, but otherwise, we'll definitely have to figure out, like this upcoming, if we do something on Sunday, we'll figure out what movie next to analyze. Also, yeah, we'll me and Peter are gonna watch The Social Network tomorrow. We're gonna live stream that, and then Friday we'll do Servant. Saturday we got the pod. And we got a lot of content coming your guys' way. Besides that, you can follow Peter. Links are down in the description. You can follow us down in the description too. We've also now separated some channels. So Smokin Sessions is now purely for movie news and reviews, where Movie Sessions is going to be purely for like trailer reviews and whatnot. And then Gaming Sessions is still Gaming Sessions. CrazyRocky still variety content. And then you can continue to follow here on the podcast. And besides that, we'll see you all in the next one.
Today's news. 3 little pigs have just built a house of straw.
You ain't blowing down. No, you ain't blowing. Say you ain't blowing down shit. Said I huff and I puff just to blow the walls down. Expose another wall just to keep me on the ground. I ain't trying to take a live, I'm just trying to stay around. But these demons in my head, yeah, they never backing down. Said I huff and I puff just to blow the walls down. Expose another wall just to keep me on the